Hi, it's Kirby Summers, and I welcome you to my podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about a post I wrote, which I uploaded to Substack in October of last year on Kanye West, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, when he came out and exposed the MK Ultra program. I want to give you some background on how artists are controlled. Before I get into it, however, please subscribe, like the video, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments area below. So in November of last year, frankly, it was November the 3rd, Kanye West tweeted, "What should be obvious by now is that I was raised to stand for my truth, regardless of the consequences. So I will say this again, I was mentally misdiagnosed and nearly drugged out of my mind to make me a manageable, well-behaved celebrity." So along with his tweet, he added a screen image of his handler, whose name is Pastor Nick, who sent him a text message. And the text message basically read, "I'm going to help you one of a couple ways. First, you and I sit down and have a loving and open conversation, but you don't use cuss words, and everything that is discussed is based in fact and not some crazy stuff that dumb friend of yours told you or you saw in a tweet. Second opinion, I have you institutionalized again, where they medicate the crap out of you and you go back to zombie land forever. Play date with the kids just won't be the same." So basically, that Pasternak has just threatened to have him institutionalized. Pasternak is Ye's. Ye is what the Kanye West now is called. That's his personal trainer. Pastor Nick or Pasternak, however you pronounce it, was in the military. He was in military intelligence, and he was trained in psychological operations. And so as soon as uh, Ye's tweet went viral, because it did go viral, um, he basically took down a lot of his information. So I was able to grab a picture of Pasternak before he took down his information. And indeed, he did have he institutionalized to a psychiatric institution in 2016. So here's the thing. I've been studying MK Ultra for many years, and I write about it. Uh, the MK Ultra program, as you know, came to the attention of the American public as in 1975 during the Church Committee hearings through a report called Family Jewels, which was ordered by then CIA Director James Schlesinger. Schlesinger had been, he's one of these guys that came over Operation Paperclip. Okay, he's one of those guys, one of these mad scientists. He had been the chair of the Atomic Energy Commission from 1971 to 1973. And of course, he had information on the MK Ultra program. So in addition to exposing the dehumanizing MK Ultra program, the report revealed a lot of the illegal activities that were being conducted by the CIA. I'm going to just take a quick sidetrack here. Among these were break-in, opening of civilian mail, wiretapping, assassination plots against foreign leaders, including Fidel Castro and Patrice Lumumba, surveillance of lawful political protests on school campuses and elsewhere. So if you remember Ohio State, when students were shot, that's part of that. And the exposure that the CIA had been maintaining files on thousands and thousands of Americans. Seymour Hersh basically wrote a New York Times article dated December 22, 1974. It created an uproar, and that led to the hearing in the Senate, Pike Committee, and also the Church Committee hearing. The words behavior modification experiments on unwitting U.S. citizens was part of that report, which is just shy of 600 pages. Uh, it was basically a program meant to control the behavior of the populace. It really started at Columbia University. In fact, Bill Barr's parents were part of that in the 1920s. And I do go into that in some of my articles and in some of my books. I won't go into that right here. A lot of people believe that it began with the scientists, and that's the popular belief. And for right now, we're just going to go with the Nazi situation. But the Nazis actually got the idea for these behavior modification programs uh, from the Americans in the 1920s. If you remember Pavlov's dog, there's just a lot of stuff, but you really have to look and search for this stuff. It is not readily available. Um, so here's the thing: New York City is a place where there's a lot of MK Ultra stuff. Brookhaven National Labs is in Montauk, which is in Long Island, which is one of the boroughs of New York City. That's where the Nazi scientists who were put in charge of, let's say, MK Ultra and other mind control programs, because MK Ultra is a catch-all phrase. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of sub-programs under that. And the way they were administered was covertly. Money would come into an organization like a mental institution, a prison, a hospital, a regular hospital even. It didn't have to be a mental institution. It could have just been a regular hospital or a school like Harvard. And it was covered up. So like the Russian dolls, that there's one inside the other. So the schools or the hospitals sometimes did not even know that the money was from CIA for them to study the MK Ultra program. Now, the people that were put in charge of these things were connected to the CIA. They were uh, their agents, if you will, and they kept records. All of these records were canceled. Canceled meaning they were destroyed when the church committee hearing was held, and they were ordered to bring in documentation. Only 12 boxes survived. Montauk had another place, so a little bit away from where the main place was for the Brookhaven National Labs. There was a secondary place when Brookhaven had to actually discontinue the program. There was another place in Montauk, New York, which is the tip of the island, and in fact is where Peter Beard, a very famous photographer, also the subject of MK Ultra, frankly, and the photographer for Jeffrey Epstein, lived for many decades. So it was a black ops project. It was funded with private money. Private money meaning, these fake billionaires and millionaires that are made because of helping the government with all kinds of other illegal things. Um, so, I mean, it's a real thing, okay? Wikipedia is going to say about Operation Paperclip, which is when the United States imported these mad scientists that had killed so many people in the Nazi concentration camps. It says Operation Paperclip was a secret United States intelligence program in which more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians were taken from former Nazi Germany to the U.S. for foreign employment after the end of World War II in Europe between 1945 and 1959. However, that number is low. The number is actually higher. These scientists were considered among the brightest in the world. They became part of the NASA program. They became embedded into some of our institutions, into our schools, Harvard, Columbia, MIT. It is not a coincidence that these are the same schools that are associated with Jeffrey Epstein. But so here's the thing. There was a program that was created by the CIA. Again, it's a covert program, but there's some information that's known about this, and it was made especially for the entertainers, right? Entertainers is not just the actors, not just the singers, but the writers as well. And it was known as the Congress for Cultural Freedom. Now, Vladimir Nabokov's cousin, Nikolai, who was known in the United States Nicholas, was a top member of the CIA's covert program. So basically, the writer of Lolita, the book about the nymphette, the little girl that was made into a movie, which, by the way, was Jeffrey Epstein's favorite book. He had copies of it in his homes, on his island, so on and so forth. That was paid for by CIA money through the Congress for Cultural Freedom. A lot of the books and movies that we see and singers and actors that we enjoy are perhaps funneled in another way. The CCF was in the 1950s to the 1960s. In 1966, the New York Times again revealed that the CCF, the Council for Cultural Freedom, had received funding from the CIA. And then about a year later, CIA did admit to that program being CIA. But, we don't have an admission into everything that happens with CIA. I don't want to make this too long, but I will say that Martha Mitchell, who was the wife of the man who went to jail as a result of Watergate, John Mitchell, the Attorney General of the United States, elected by Richard Nixon. By the way, the man that Jeffrey Epstein claimed introduced him to Stephen Hoffenberg, and the man who has been written about as having had access to the Franklin scandal boy parties. So we have John Mitchell being connected to these two pedophile rings as well. He was married to a woman named Martha Mitchell, who acknowledged at one point that she was an MK Ultra a subject. He was her second husband. I'm going to do a whole podcast on this because nobody's done it. And she identified a hotel in New York City as being a CIA sort of front. It was where the CIA could take some of their assets. So if you were a public personality and you had sway over the culture of, let's say, the United States or the UK, or let's say Israel, if you have some sway over the culture, you're going to be part of this mind control, mind behavior, modification program because you have sway over the public. Um, there's a lot that is still unknown because people think that the program ended. We've always been under the influence of, quote, mind control through still our music is the number one thing, the films that we watch, even the documentaries. I'm very careful when I'm watching a documentary because I know that I'm watching a spin, sort of like somebody else's take on what they want me to believe happened. So I'm always um, watching whatever I watch, really not believing everything and questioning, open, just basically not saying, okay, this is the end all. No, it's like this is telling me some truth because there has to be an element of truth to the information that we're fed. But anyway, going back to Kanye West, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, now known as Ye. He was one person who was really, really outspoken about his MK Ultra uh, handling, to be a better behaved artist. There are others who have tried to step forward throughout the years. I mean, he's pretty recent, but there have been others in the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s, throughout history who have tried to tell the world that they were hooked up to machines, that they were trained to do X, Y, or Z. But the public, since we're not really tuned into covert government programs, we just think these people are crazy. And for the most part, they will be institutionalized. And so then we think, oh, this person is crazy, and we dismiss what they have to say. In any event, I hope that you, I'll leave a link to the article on my Substack. It's free to read. I urge you to subscribe, even if you do not become a paying member, although really appreciate everyone who has become a paying member. This is how I am able to perform this work and this research and share the information that I learned during the course of my life uh, as a as slave to an elite member of society who is part of the group that controls us, because I see things in a way that is different, let's say, than someone who was never exposed. So I thank those of you who have become paid members of my newsletter. But if you cannot afford it, that's fine. You can still become a member. I do put out free newsletters from time to time, like this one. All right, anyway, thanks for joining in. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.